There we go. Okay, great. All right, so thanks everyone for coming, and I hope this will be useful. I gave one of these probably almost a year ago now, really early on, in when this ChatGPT was just sort of coming out. I was one of the early ones to start playing around with it, and I gave a little bit of a tutorial on what to do, what you could do, is sort of like a beginner slash, I guess, intermediate introduction into some of the fancy things that could be done. But truthfully, it was, a year in this area is, the technology is moving so quickly, and it's improving so quickly with regard to its veracity, with regard to its comprehensiveness, and in particular with regard to its ability to sort of intuit what it is that you want it to do. When I gave the presentation a year ago or so, it was a lot of it was on how to be very specific about what you wanted to ask for, because if you asked it in different ways, then you got very, very different results. Now, some of that's going to continue today, and there is going to be a certain amount of that, and we're going to talk through a variety of ways in which we can, work with the system and get the best output that we can from it. But truthfully, it's becoming less and less important, because the system is getting better and better at guessing what it is you're going to want. That doesn't mean, again, we're going to go through today. There's still better and worse ways to converse with the system, but I anticipate it's just going to get easier and easier as time goes on. And so I thought it was time for another little webinar on this. And part of the reason for that, I'll just start also by saying I recognize. I sort of know remains some concerns over, for instance, the ethical use of AI in the classroom, both for students and for teachers. I'll say that I share that concern, but I think, if it isn't clear already, but it certainly will be by the end of this presentation. I'm largely a proponent of the technology. I do share the concern, but I think that at this point, I think that the technology is going to be so transformative and so inevitable that between the two of those, I just think that it is it behooves us and our students to know how to use the technology, and so I'm largely going to sort of sidestep the ethical side for this presentation. This is much on the ethical side, and I certainly hope that we don't blow the world up eventually. But this presentation is largely going to sidestep those ethical concerns. Okay, I'll also just say that I have a tendency to just sort of go, but of course, if anybody has any questions, or if anything's not working with the feed or whatever, obviously please let me know. Feel free. I'll also try to leave room at the end for questions as well. I do have a fairly aggressive schedule and timetable going here, but I'm hoping to have time for questions at the end. Give a little bit of a brief introduction for those of you who are already fairly familiar with these with the system. This little introduction may be a little introductory, but I'll just start off by explaining just a little bit about what it is that makes this generative AI so transformative. And in my opinion, what it is that technology has gotten, by being generative, this generative component of it, and being able to speak to it in free language, has made it so that for the first time ever, we don't need to know how to speak computer anymore. In the past, we've had to learn DOS, and we've had to learn Python, and we've had to learn whatever it is to get magical things to happen from our computer, to have really powerful things happen with our computer. We need to speak computer. And for the first time ever, we don't need to speak computer anymore. The computer now speaks our language. It now speaks human. And it's not perfect, and there's flaws, and but it's getting better at a very quick rate. And essentially what this allows is we now are able to speak human to the computer and have it understand us. And that opens up a whole new world, because all of those fantastic, powerful, magical things that only developers were able to do in the past are opening up to the general population. And we're able to do a lot of things with English or whatever language you speak, that were just not possible in the past without being a hardcore developer. So today, mostly this is going to be a show and tell. I'm going to run through, I'm going to open up, I'm going to work largely in ChatGPT for today. I'm going to open up the window and start showing, some of the ways that I converse with it, and some of the things, and we'll build up to some fairly complex and sophisticated ChatGPT with a particular focus towards academic applications. So, okay, I don't see any. I'm sort of monitoring the chat and Q&A as well. I don't see anything yet, so I'll continue on. Okay, so I'm largely going to start in ChatGPT. I'll just note there's a number of them at this point. They all are becoming pretty powerful. I'm going to work in ChatGPT because it's the one that I know the best. You'll note that I'm in ChatGPT 4 here. That is the paid version. You can switch between paid and free. I have the paid version. I'm largely going to work in that paid version today, but I'll also just note that Microsoft Copilot, for instance, uses ChatGPT for the paid version, and you can use it for free. And so it does almost identical stuff. And Google now has their Google Gemini platform that is that's stronger and weaker in different ways, and we're not going to get into all of that today. But so I'll just note, though, that I'm going to be working with the paid platform, but for those of you that are worried about accessibility, etc., almost all of this is possible for free at this point. Okay, so I'm just going to jump in. And the first thing I'll do is just note, so starting with the basics again, how do we speak to this? Well, we speak to this as if it's a human, because it understands human now. So one of the big differences between these chatbots and, for instance, Google, and the way that we have generally searched for information in the past, is that we can now speak in full sentences. It understands context. It understands meaning. It understands sort of, the underlying goals and context of what we're writing about. And so, whereas in Google, well, here I'll just open up. So let me go to Google. So good, and that's working for everybody, so that's good. So in Google, let's just say that I'm interested in coming up with a new way of a new niche blog for cats. All right, and I want to know, I want to try to figure out what a new niche is that hasn't been covered yet. And I don't know, maybe I put in blog posts cats right into Google. I show that, and we get, okay, well, that is a blog post, and this will answer all the questions, and here's another blog. Okay, so we just got all the blog posts. Okay, so let's try, I don't know, let's try niche blog post ideas for cats, something like that. And now we've got, all right, well, we got 100 blog post ideas, so that's actually pretty good. Here's another 50 blog post ideas. It's not bad. That's pretty good. And we can go through each of these, and we can look at this 101, and maybe we find something, and and this is probably a 15-minute endeavor. to now go through and try to figure out, and that may or may not be fruitful in terms of finding our niche for for our cat blog posts. Right? And so and of course, if I now go, I'm looking to, well, here, let's put in, yeah, so I've got a variety of prompts, as we call them. I've got a variety of prompts sort of already pre-made, and I'm going to be doing a lot of copying and pasting. So just in case you wonder how I'm like suddenly got paragraphs ready, I've got some stuff ready to go. So let's say that I put this in instead. And I put in, really interested in creating a fresh new blog post about cats. I love cats, and I know so much about them. So can really get in depth about the way most blogs can't. But I'm not sure if the market is already saturated. Could you provide a summary of the most popular existing blogs on cats and make some really creative suggestions about specific niche areas about cats that aren't fully covered at this point? Okay, now let's see what Google gives us. And well, we got our blog back. Not sure what that one is. It's on Medium, so it's probably a blog again. Okay, so you can see this didn't work very well. So if I go to GPT, I'll work backwards this time. I'm going to take the same copy paste, the exact same prompt in, and you're going to see that instead we get now, if it decides to work, there we go. Okay. Cat blogosphere is vibrant and diverse, wide range of behaviors. Some of the most popular cat blogs in 2024, because I asked for a summary of the most popular existing blogs on cats. So here they are. Note, we have links to them. This is new. It's now providing links to its sources much of the time. And even when it doesn't do that, you can now ask it for it. I'll also just note that these are accurate links. So if I go to it, you'll just see it actually went to the link that it found. Okay, so that's one thing, just to help. It is starting to cite. And then you'll see it's now provided a variety of, it's still going, it's providing a variety of niche suggestions: cats and arts and history, cats and technology, cat psychology and communication, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, we're not going to go a lot further down this because, of course, we don't really want to create a blog post on cats. But already you can see, first of all, you can already start to see the type of prompt that I'm providing here. I'm really speaking English to it, more than just even, give me a list of cat blogs or give me a list of new cat blogs. You could do that too. And again, the system is actually getting way better at giving you really useful information from very simple prompts. But the more you give it, the more context you give it, the more it's going to give you back. Okay. So that helps. Okay, and I'll just note also that if we do in fact go backwards and we put in niche blog ideas about cats, which is the second thing that I added into Google, you'll note that it does, you can see, it's still actually giving you pretty good stuff. It's guessing about what you want, and here's your list. Right? Cat behavior and cognitive science. There you go. So, and we'll just let that continue. But so you can see, you can speak to it in really simple language, and it will give you more context than, probably more accurate context than what Google will at this point. But the more you can provide, the more background you can provide, the better the information is going to be. And so, okay, so that hopefully already also starts to give just a little bit of a flavor into how to prompt, and also what the power of the system is and how it differs again from something just like Google, which we're also familiar with. Since I'm talking to academics here for the most part, imagine now that you're not in Google, but you're in Google Scholar, right? And you're now searching for keywords for academic journal articles on a given topic that you want to find. Right? And now You can imagine Google Scholar is giving you search terms, it's doing keyword search terms. If you could be contextual about it, if you could provide a prompt like this that gets you exactly what you're looking for out of the papers, and if the papers are capable, and if the system is capable of understanding the context of the papers as well, so it's not even just thinking about the keywords and bringing them up based on keywords, you can imagine how much more powerful that can be. I'll show a little bit more about that a little later on in the presentation. So, okay, so as I just look again, I'll just welcome, feel free again if there are any questions or comments or anything. Otherwise, I'll just continue on. Okay, so you can see again, you can see what this this prompt that I put in is here and how contextualized it is. The rule, the rule that is sort of that goes around, and the one that I like to use, and it's not really mine, but nonetheless, the one I like to use as guidance on how to talk to the system to get out of it what you need, is the rule is talk to it as if it is a high achieving college or university intern. And so, and by that, the reason that that's used is because it gives a good balance of what you don't want to do. Like, so what that, first of all, that that sort of facilitates the idea that you're talking to a human, so that you speak in human rather than in computer again to it. And it also gives it sort of gives some idea of the level of specificity and the level of guidance that would be beneficial to give. If you do just say, give me a list of catalogs, then it'll give you a list of catalogs, but they might not be the ones you were looking for. If you say, write me a report on blank topic, it'll write you a report, but it might not have the tone, the professionalism, the focus, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that you're looking for. It may not use the sources you want. It may, you can imagine, I mean, ask a high achieving university student, undergraduate, to to write a literature review for you, and you can anticipate that only some of the sources are going to be academic, right? And they'll likely have used some popular culture ones, and you'll have to go back and correct them and say, no, you shouldn't have done that. It's like, well, I only want academic journals. That level, if you would need to say that to your college, to your university student, you would do well to say that to the system. And the more guidance you can give, the better the outcome is going to be. So I'll just show this in live, and as an example. So you'll just note, if every time I go up here, I open a new ChatGPT window, you'll notice that I have a history going down the side here of everything that I've done up until now. Yep, and so we'll continue on for now. So I'll just just to make this point, I'll just write a paragraph about airplane turbulence. Okay, and it'll do it. And honestly, you'll as you read through this, you'll be like, this is pretty decent. And so you can put in a fairly simple, system's a bit slow at the moment, but nothing I can do about that. You can put in a fairly simple prompt and it'll give you a decent output. But if I instead say, copy paste it now, I'm a university professor in the physics department, and I plan to explain airplane turbulence to my graduate students, write a paragraph that I can use as an explanation. You'll note that, no, it didn't do it. Okay, so hold on. So I'll show another, it almost did it, but not quite. I'll show another aspect of the system. This will be a good example of this, because so it's talking to me now instead of giving me my script. So I'll let this finish and I'll just say, you misunderstood. I need you to actually write out the paragraph itself. Now it should do it. And so you'll see that you can actually have a conversation with it as well. You can correct, here you go. You can correct it, you can re-guide it. It's the more, I'll go back down in a second, the more information you can give at the beginning, the better. But there's no reason why you can't be working your way through, and figure out, oh, it didn't do what I wanted it to do, and correct it. And sometimes it doesn't do what you wanted it to do because your instruction wasn't very good, and sometimes it just doesn't do what you wanted it to do, like this one. I practiced this already. I practiced this yesterday, it worked, but today it didn't work, and that's fine. You'll note, so I'll just note the original paragraph we now got and the more sophisticated one that we get because we've now, in this case, note I've only told it who I am and what my audience is going to be. Okay, and it is intuiting now that this can be a higher level conversation. Okay, to make this point a little bit further, copy pasting again. Here's one more. I'm a world-renowned university professor and a world expert in the physics underlying airplane turbulence. I plan to give a talk in which I will explain the physics of airplane turbulence to colleagues and students in the physics department. Everyone will have at least a BSc in physics, so the discussion can be at a quite high level. Write a paragraph I can use. Okay, and you'll note, and I'll let that one go, but I can see it's doing this one correctly, and I anticipate that it is going to be quite sophisticated now. So I'm just looking at the chat, and I can see Guada, you're asking, does ChatGPT 4 make up information as previous versions? Much less. Much less than before. I won't say it doesn't. It still can a little bit here and there, but and certainly the more specific the information you can give it, the less it has to guess at things, the less likely it is to give you false information. But honestly, it's correcting itself. It's strengthening itself. I can't think of the word, but it leaps and bounds these days. You still, of course, need to fact check, but honestly, it's usually, I'd say 95% of the time these days, it's right. And again, you'll note that it's giving citations where you want them. And if I asked for citations now, it would give them to me. Also, just as that, I'll just note, if I switch to Gemini for a second, I'm not going to go through that. I'm not going to go through Gemini in any detail, but I will just, here, I'll just take this simple one, throw it in here for a second. That is, you'll see that Gemini actually now offers, where is it? Oh, there you go, to double check responses. And so you can actually click this and it will now go back through its own response and fact check itself, which of course is a little bit circular and yet still mostly works, because now it means that the system the AI actually has to be wrong twice in the same way, which it's not wrong once in the first very often anymore. And so but you can see technologies, they're trying, and it is really improving in leaps and bounds. Okay, so I'm really having an issue with this. Is this position of real work or growth that I'm doing? Oh, okay. So I'm gonna leave that for now. Again, I'm gonna skip over these things for now. But and in fact, I will just say that my last presentation that I gave was actually specifically about ways in which you could apply this in the classroom. This one's not about that exactly. I do think there are ways in which this can be used for growth and learning opportunities as well. But I'm gonna, for time purposes, I'm going to hold off on that for now, but I'm happy to get into that at the end if there's time. Okay, so okay, and so again, so you can see we've now got a quite high level of sophistication going on with our paragraph now. And so, and again, you can now go through and you can say, actually, I don't want this, I don't want that, this is leaning too far this way, you didn't talk about this, et cetera, and it will it'll change it around for you. Okay, and so again, that just demonstrates, first of all, how important it is to um, provide as much information, as much context as you can, and also to um, uh, um, to be able to go back and forth with it and negotiate with it to some extent and talk to it and iterate with it, which I think is actually where a lot of the learning can come in. But again, I'll get into that maybe at the end. Okay, so so the last tip I want to give before I start getting into course development is that one of the best ways for those of you who are still like, I'm still not sure exactly how I'm going to be able to talk to this system, etc. One of the best, or I'm not sure what I'm going to be able to get out of it, or I'm not getting out of it what I want, or I'm not even sure how to start, etc., etc. One of the best ways of learning this and about working with it is to ask it to help you, to ask it to help you. And so I'll just show, again, I'm going to copy paste here. Again. Okay. This is true now. My 16-year-old daughter wants to get help from you because she wants to start up a biology club at school, which she did, and isn't sure how to go about doing so. But she's also not used to talking to AI, and so isn't quite sure what to ask you so that you can provide her with the best help. Can you provide wording for a prompt that my daughter can use to ask you for help about this? Okay. And so certainly your daughter can use the following prompt to get started on her quest to establish a biology club. I'm interested in starting a biology club. Note, this is what she would put into ChatGPT. Okay. Hi, I'm interested in starting a biology club, passionate about biology, want to start. However, I'm not sure where to begin. Could you provide me with a detailed guide on how to start a biology club at school? Specifically, I'm looking for advice on these things. Okay. And note, there's lots of different ways you could have gotten this information, but note that this hasn't actually given information. This hasn't said how to do it exactly. This is actually giving useful questions to think about as as she is thinking about trying to develop this biology club. And she didn't know how to go about doing this. She wasn't sure what to do, but she now, now she now knows she might need to talk to a school administrator, have a proposal for that, come up with suggestions for activities, projects, etc., 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 etc. Okay, and so we could now just take this system, and there you go. Starting a biology club at school is a fantastic initiative, and here's, I'm here to guide you through the process. Here's what might go into drafting a proposal for school administration. Okay, and so again, I'm largely going to sidestep, but the ethics of it, because of course a student could now go in here and just say, write that for me. But note how, if you have the process stop here, you've actually provided quite a good guideline on how to write a proposal. And this is a good starting draft of an outline of the types of things that might want to go into this. Here's some ideas that she could think about, right? Maybe some strategies for recruiting for the, and so this is, well, it's up to opinion, but I think this is a useful structure. It was certainly helpful for her, and she ended up going offline and running with this as a bit of a checklist of things that she could now do to start up her biology club, which she did. So, but in this case, what I'm really showing, I mean, again, I'm not trying to show the ethics and the strengths of the applications exactly. I'm more just demonstrating the process of, in this case, asking the system to tell you how to ask the system to get what you want out of it. And I use this all the time at this point. So for instance, okay, and so we're now going to start getting more complicated. And I know that there's still, the comments are long and I'm having trouble working through them at the same time. But I think what I'm going to show, so up until now, what I'm showing is really quite simple stuff. We're write a draft on this, write a draft on that, write a draft on this, write a draft on that. Okay. And of course, those types of things, which I'm showing right now, which are those types of things are going to bring up the types of ethical issues that Anna, for instance, is I think raising. Although I apologize, Anna, I'll try to go through them in more detail when I have the chance. But that's the tip of the iceberg in terms of what you can do with this system at this point. And so, on the one hand, I understand there's ethical concerns to saying write this paper for me, but we're now going to move into more intermediate stuff, and I think, well, we'll see. I mean, my goal isn't to convince you of the ethics, so I will continue on. Okay, so I'm going to show you, for instance, here's another one. Okay, and I'm copying and pasting. I'm going to bring up a new window, copying and pasting. Okay, this is a long one. I'm trying to build an AI tutor that can provide educational support to underrepresented and racialized communities that can't afford Ivy League educations. The tutor needs to be encouraging, upbeat, compassionate, empathetic, gentle, and understanding, but also professional, direct, and rigorous. They need to have the knowledge and experience of a teacher with 25 years of teaching experience under their belt and an ability to teach even the most complicated topics to people without formal book smarts. They need to be culturally, racially, age, and gender sensitive, and they need to be able to challenge and motivate students even when they are having a difficult time understanding the concepts. What I need your help with is the system prompt that will help develop, guide, and control this AI tutor. Since you are an AI agent, you're an expert in what system prompts you would require to become the tutor that I'm looking to develop. So I need you to provide me with a thorough system prompt that will provide the high-level persona for this AI tutor. Can you do that? And here you go. And so I mean, you can see how we've just elevated a step, right? And this is why I used the word at the beginning. I don't know, I sort of thought about it for a second and then used the word applications at the beginning. And this is where it now becomes a little bit clear, where you no longer need to be a developer to create applications. You can now create applications through English. And so, or again, whatever language you speak. And so in this case, I'm no longer asking it to write me anything. I'm creating an AI, I'm creating a program to help, in this case, to create a tutor that's going to be culturally sensitive for underrepresented populations. And you can see as it's going through here, it's giving the suggestions here. It's going to have that. We're going to have interactivity and engagement, feedback and assessment, challenge and motivation, customization, okay, privacy and ethical concerns. Okay. And then I can now also say, if you were building this AI tutor, are there any other system prompt content? Is there any other system prompt content you'd want to include? If I were building this, here's some additional things to think about. Okay, and I'm gonna guess that, I mean, I'm not in the education department. I know there's a fair number of you here. I'm gonna guess that many of you are gonna look at this and be like, that's not bad. It's pretty on point with what we might want to be thinking about for this. I'll stop at the screen. I'll try to stop the screen there for now. On what we might want to be looking for in this AI agent, in this tutor, right? And so now I'm not going to go through, we're not going to play with the tutor very much, but I can now copy paste this. I could create a new ChatGPT. I can copy paste all of these instructions into the window, and we'll have a tutor that we can now use that people could use. And so anyway, so I'm not trying to suggest that you all suddenly start running out and use applications, but I just want to show a little bit of, I think it's important to sort of demonstrate this next level of applications that the system can do, because of course there are because of course there are, there's, the people out there who are going to be very concerned about the ethics. And when we look at it in terms, when it's very simple things like write this for me, write that for me, write this paragraph, write that paragraph, I agree. There's potentially not, the benefits are debatable for sure. But anyway, hopefully this opens your eyes a little bit to some of the possibilities. For instance, I'll tell you, I'm actually working with a startup at this point to try to develop an AI therapist for mental health resources for those who can't afford access to professional mental health resources. And so I just changed this around and put tutor in for the most part, and started it that way. But the applicant, you can see how, you can see the power here, the potential power here. Okay, so now tutoring, of course, is academically related. And so, sorry, I'm distracted by the, I shouldn't be looking at the comments. They're going by too quickly now. Yeah, Will.
Yeah, I'm also getting really distracted by the comments. I think Matt said he was going to answer questions at the end of this workshop. Could we all just
Oh, well, no, I mean, in fact, I'm just going to close the chat window because I am getting distracted by it. But no, I'm certainly.
I'll do the same.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to suggest people can't chat. Please, by all means. But I'll bet I will say I've just closed it because I am getting distracted. So there is. I'll note though, I opened up the Q&A section as well. So that's what I'll do. Okay, I have the Q&A section open on my page. If there are specific questions that you need me to address, then throw them in there. Okay. Okay. So yeah. So tutoring obviously is relevant to academia, but this is supposed to be how can we use this for ourselves. So from this point on, I'm now going to be starting about applications. Yeah, that's right. Applications for academics in particular. And so I'm going to start with course development. Okay. Now for this, I'm going to open up. I already have one. And the way this is started, so I'm teaching right now, I'm teaching a neuroscience of emotion class, 4th year neuroscience of emotion class, small seminar. And it's my area. I mean, it's essentially my area of expertise for those, so I can teach this, but, and so, I'm not, and I think that's important. I mean, I really think that's important because, of course, you're not just going to go through. And I mean, certainly my suggestion is not that anybody just can suddenly go and teach a neuroscience of emotion class by just getting ChatGPT to help them develop the curriculum. But I will show. But I used this to help me develop my curriculum for this course, which of course I could put together on my own, but I didn't. So I'm going to show you. Okay, so I'm a university professor. I will be teaching a 4th year seminar course in the neuroscience of emotion. I need your help developing a syllabus for the course with lecture content, readings, assignments, and quizzes. Everything should be cohesive. Can you help me with this? If so, I will provide more context and instruction. Okay, I'm going to pause there for, no, I won't. I'll leave that till later. Okay, so of course, I'd be happy to help you develop this, provide me with more context. Okay, let's start with the lectures. Can you recommend a course plan for me? Certainly, here's a course plan. And again, I'm going to guess there aren't a lot of other neuroscience of emotion experts out there, but I'll tell you, and you can probably tell yourself, but I'll tell you, this is a perfectly reasonable outline for a 12-course seminar on the neuroscience of emotion. Introduction to the neuroscience of emotion. Notice we've got readings. I will tell you, because I know this is a real book. And not only is it a real book, it is the book that I would assign a reading. I have assigned readings from this book. I mean, this is all my students read this book. And so I can tell you the rest. I mean, these are all real readings. Okay, so and they make sense. But anyway, okay, introduction, basic emotion systems, primary emotions, regular, yeah. Say hand up. Asifa.
Sorry, Asifa here. I had my mute on. Is it possible that ChatGPT remembers you or your history, and it knows that this is a book you preferred or at some point, or is that because remember when we keep our course outlines, sometimes these are also publicly available,
Yeah.
so it can use that from the data set and make that connection?
It's a great question. No, the very short answer is no, not yet. The short answer is no. The longer answer is not yet. OpenAI, which will give the slightly longer answer, ChatGPT does not currently have a memory. Now, it can, I suppose, well, yeah, it could potentially go through and find, my academic writings out there and whatnot, but I don't believe it does that. I don't believe it's currently personalizing it to that level. It's taking the most popular stuff, and this happens to be one of the most popular books. But as a slightly longer answer, OpenAI is actually adding memory to ChatGPT right now, and so it's apparently been. I don't have it yet. I'm waiting for it to show up, but they're like they're gradually giving it to paid users. It just started. I think it was on last week. They opened it up, but right now, ChatGPT doesn't actually even remember. So if I just go back to here, you can see that we've got my search history here. Right now, ChatGPT won't remember from one chat to the next. So as soon as you open a new chat window, it's a fresh conversation. It will remember the context within a conversation, but it won't currently switch between them. That will change, and in fact, my understanding is that that their memory function for now is that you're going to be able to put in the information for you that you want. So you're going to be able to say, I'm, a 48-year-old university professor. I tend to write in very professional scientific style. My daughter is 16 and looking for universities right now. Like whatever you're going to be able to put in some of those facts, and it's going to be able to get some of that stuff, but not right now.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so anyway, we won't go through this too much more, but you can see, I mean, you can take my word for it, but it's giving subcategories. These make sense. They're not, they more than make sense. They're good. Like, these are good. Okay, like I could easily now, I mean, somebody's not just teaching on all these things. I can't imagine very many of you are like, okay, I'm ready to go. But it's good. Okay, so I'll continue on. Can you provide an alternate course plan, Marietta?
Yeah, just further to the previous call, on the free ChatGPT, which I use, you can archive your chats, and then you can, if you want to revisit a chat, and then you can go back and unarchive it and continue on with the conversation as well.
That's right. And thank you. Yeah, which again is it will remember the conversation within a chat, and that's right. Thanks, Marietta. Okay, so it's now said, can you provide an alternate course plan? Sure. Here's an alternate. Okay, and some of this overlaps and some of it doesn't, but it's given me here's a new 12-week course, and we won't go through that too much. And I'll say this is fantastic. Let's do one more. Okay, absolutely. Here's a third one. Okay, and now we've got genetics that's starting to show up in here. That's pretty good. Okay, neuroplasticity and emotional development. Okay, we've got fear and happiness. It's now giving me one that's going specific emotions. Okay, so that's fine. Aging, great. Okay, so now let's see. What did I do here? Okay, I've asked for readings. Fine. It'll give me, I've suggested readings for the course. Okay, what about in the last 5 years? Any new books making waves in this area? Sure, and here they are. And I'll tell you that I wasn't aware of all of these. There's the same author. I wasn't aware of all of these, but I've looked them up. They're all real, and they're all pretty darn. I mean, they're good. In fact, it's a pretty nice way to create a little bit of a reading list for yourself too, to keep up to date on things. I could, of course, say anything in the last 6 months. And continue on. Okay, let's move on to the structure of the course. I don't want to lecture the whole time, so could you suggest some ideas for me? Sure. Okay. And this is just giving, some ideas that you and I and, we as educators probably all know about already, but it's not an unhelpful list. And you can see that it's actually gotten a bit specific for me here by talking through EEG, which, for brainwave patterns and whatnot. So it's actually taking the course into account and trying to come up with some stuff. But this is pretty, I've asked, this is a general prompt. And so I'm getting mostly general information back. That's fine. Oh, my chat ends here. Okay, that's not supposed to end here. Shoot, okay, I did much more, but that's okay, because what we're going to do is switch over here. And what I'm going to do now, I was going to show a little more there, but that's fine. We'll just do this live. So what I'm going to do is copy paste back over to here, and I'm going to switch this out. And I'm going to switch out the neuroscience of emotion, and I'm going to put in globalization and the flattening of the world. Not my area of expertise. Okay, and so we'll let that continue on for a minute. Okay, and so so I'm gonna. Oh, I see. It's asking for information in this case. Here, can you suggest a 12-course structure, a 12-class, sorry, structure for. And so here, I'll actually. I'll come down here. Okay, so you can see again, we've got topics, potential readings, potential assignments. This is because I've asked for each of these things. Now, I'm going to say, I'll take this while this is building this out, I'll take the opportunity to say that in this case, this prompt that I've given says, I want you to give me everything. I want you to give me the lecture content, the reading, the assignments, the quizzes, everything should be cohesive. Truthfully, that's probably not the best way to go right off the bat. And that is actually why, as I just asked for a 12-course structure, it's now giving me everything with readings, assignments, and everything. It's fine, no reason why you can't have readings, etc. But I'll just say that these systems have word limits on them. Every response, it has a sort of a tailored word limit. And ChatGPT and the others do a pretty good job of trying to fill that space, but not go over it. And so you will often get more detailed information if you only ask for one thing at a time. So if I were, for instance, to have just said, can you give me a 12-course structure with class topics and subtopics, for instance, I'd get quite a bit more detail on those subtopics under each class. And class 1, class 2, class 3. Okay, so right at this point, I've asked for a lot of information, and so it knows it. There's no need to give me like super detailed information on everything at this point. It's giving me a cross section of things. Okay, so there you go. Okay, so I've got that. I won't. Well, okay, I will actually. I'll do one more. Can you provide an alternate course plan? And I'll just let that build out. I will also note the paid version is actually slower than the free version. The free version is quite a bit faster. And so it's possible I should actually be switching to 3.5 for some of this. But anyway, for any of you who are just wondering, about the speed at whatnot that this is coming out. Okay, so I'll just let that build out, and then I'll move on to the next step. I'm not going to do the third one, but I'm now going to start to show you. Yeah, so Paris, right. So what's the benefit of the alternate outlines? I'm waiting, and it's going to be the next step on this. Okay, so they are different. They tend to be different. You can also feel free to, like, and again, I'm being pretty general about it. Can you give me a 12 course plan on the neuroscience of emotion, on flattening and the globalization of the world, right? I could very easily and probably should say, here's what I'm thinking. I've already got these this is the way I'd like to take this. It's a small seminar. I'd like it to be interactive. I don't want, right? I'm not planning on lecturing the whole time. I'm thinking about organizing it in terms of like individual, each class should be an individual emotion. You can tell it all of that information if you already know what you want. In this case, I'm just starting with a full blank slate. Okay, good, this is done. So now what I'm gonna say is, so I've got 2 alternates, okay? In the real one, I did 3. And it does. Oh, sorry, to your question, Paris. It tends to. I'll tell you that Gemini is actually better at this part of it. Gemini is a little more creative, a little harder to control. You sometimes goes a little off track, but it will give you some pretty nice brainstorming sessions. And so I found with Gemini in particular, if you ask it for 3 different course outlines, it literally will be like, this one I'm structuring this way. This one I'm structuring chronologically. This one I'm structuring based on emotion type. This one I'm structuring based on, you know, type of brain circuitry that's involved, for instance. Okay, but again, you can of course, exactly. You can of course try to guide it further as well. Okay, but here's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to say this is great. If you were to number these, each all of your classes from 1 to 24, I have decided that I'm going to use the following classes in my course. 1, 3, 8, 7, 10, 14, 15, 16, 18, 17. Of them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 8, and 24. Right? Who knows? Who cares? Okay. Okay, and so here's the classes you've selected. Great. And you'll note that it's now, so it's going to have figured that out. It renumbered all of these because it didn't do them, but it'll have renumbered all of those. It's now giving me the suggestion. Here's what I've decided. And here you go. You can see from the first course plan, from the second course plan, whatever. It's helped me out. I guess I only had 11. Okay. Anyway, there you go. And so one of the reasons, so what I did was I put together 36 different classes for my neuroscience of emotion class to give me ideas. And then I was like, oh, I know exactly what I want to talk about in this class. Oh yeah, of course I want to talk about that. Oh yeah, this is an important thing to talk about for sure. I want to do that. Oh, it's still going. Okay. And so then what I did was I picked and chose the 12 classes that I felt most capable of teaching, most most confident in teaching, and that I thought were most important, and then of course put together a good course structure. Okay, so there you go. What you could then do is you could say, could you play devil's advocate and provide some constructive criticism about the course plan, the course structure. And there you go. And of course, I've chosen these randomly. I probably have some repetition. I'm going to bet that it tells me repetition somewhere. Maybe I'm missing themes. There you go. So I've of course chosen this randomly. I didn't pick this well. I didn't. So it's going to have all kinds of issues. Unfortunately, this got cut off. I don't know why this got cut off, but I had this in this one, and it was like, no, it's very good. There's a couple of things you might want to think about. Maybe you want to do this. Maybe you want to do that. You might want to think about like including something on this, but mostly it linked what was a logical order for my neuroscience of emotion class, right? Whereas Whereas in this case, it's now going to find all kinds of things. Yeah, so I will pause there as I saw a comment come in about the self-critique. I'll say, for those of you, again, that are trying to think about this for applications for school, I will just go off with that self-critique of writing is, I think, one place where this can really help to, that's one application that can really strengthen the classroom environment and the students' learning experiences, if done correctly. Again, that's not really what this talk is about, but I do think it's some of it is on that level. You can also, as I divest off for a second, you can ask it to play action editor, high-level editor on your writing. And so instead of saying, can you rewrite this for me, you can say, I'd like you to act as an executive editor on this and provide me with suggestions, strengths and weaknesses and whatnot on this writing, ways in which my arguments may or may not be as strong as they could be, and ways in which I could, strengthen them, type of thing. And it won't rewrite it in that case. It will instead say, well, you might want to do this. You could do it this way. Here's a couple of suggestions on how to achieve that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So again, I'm not going to go down that road too far right now, but some of that, I think, is places where it really could actually enhance the classroom environment if done correctly. Okay, so there you can see, again, we've got diversity, right, engagement with current events, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so fine. So I continue on. Now, what I did for my class is I now said, here, I don't even need to go up here. So now I'll just say, okay, I now want to go step by step through each class one at a time to develop more detailed content for each lecture. Let's start with class 1. Okay. Can you provide 4 modules, 20 minutes each, that could be useful content for this class? And so, okay, and we'll just I'm just going to go up again. I should have actually not done the first one, but because it's the introduction, it's not going to be quite as good for demonstrating the content fit. But you'll see that it's so here we go. Here's your module, objective, content, module, objective, content, module, objective, content. Now, some of you will, I'm sure, I'm raising eyebrows again in terms of like, yeah, but am I doing anything? Am I this? Truthfully, this is not that different than the teaching guides that come with every textbook these days, right? And every textbook will come now with teacher's notes and curriculum suggestions and whatever else. This is not very different from any of that with our suggested class activities and assignments, etc. The only difference is this is personalized and iterative, right? So I can now say, could you give me a little bit more content on number 3? I'd really, or no, I don't like 3. I'd rather do 4. Could you suggest a different one instead? Or, these aren't interactive enough. Could you suggest some interactive stuff? And so, for instance, I can now say also, I don't want to lecture the entire time. Can you suggest some fun interactive activities for class 5? Class 5, okay, so it's told me again, drivers of globalization, and here we go. Okay, globalization bingo, and on the one hand, so here, like, again, and this just speaking to Anna for, and not singling out Anna. I can't even see the comments anymore, but just obviously speaking to somebody who has some concerns with the ethics, etc. Again, great global trade. Like, again, I mean, I could think all of these things up, but oh my God, to be able to, like, wow, hey, I really love that idea. That's a great one. Globalization bingo. The students will love that. And that I don't feel bad at all about having the system help me figure some of that stuff out, some of these cool ideas for what I can put into the classroom. And truthfully, if it makes my classroom environment more engaging because I have the time to put something like this to think about it or put something like this together, where otherwise week to week to week, you're like, damn, I wish I had more time to make this one more dynamic. I guess I'm just going to be lecturing today because I didn't have time for all of them, right? So if it enriches the classroom environment, I mean, I call it a win. But yeah, Eleodor?
Yeah, I'm curious. I mean, it seems to be doing great on what are generally common tasks that many people encounter.
Okay.
I'm just curious how useful it would be on very specific tasks that are really cutting edge. Just out of curiosity, for example, what are the difficulties of landing a spacecraft at the moon's North Pole? Something that really gets into something we are not able to do, or very difficult. We would find difficult to do.
Well, so
and not many people, are confronted with that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, we could put that one in obviously and see, but I'll say, I mean, I'm obviously guessing a little bit, but I would say, first of all, of course, this is, I mean, we all know at this point, I think, how this is working. It is grabbing content and summarizing content from the internet. So to some extent, the content does have to be out there for it to grab. At the same time, and I don't understand it. I mean, it's way beyond my pay grade, but there is something emergent about this technology, and I'm not actually sure. I think at this point, some people are starting to understand how that has come to be, but I think that was even a bit of a surprise at the time in terms of just how quickly that emergence was able to develop out of this process of like pairing words together and summarizing all the content on the internet and whatever else. I mean, the system's getting surprisingly good at.
Yeah, and I'm just curious where it is. Yeah, I fully agree with you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, what might I need to take into account to, to land a spacecraft?
What are the difficulties? I'd like a somewhat more pointed question. Like,
Sure.
What are the difficulties of landing a craft on a lunar pole?
Sure.
It's probably something to do with like aliens or something like
It might be.
As opposed to the equatorial regions, present several unique challenges. Yeah. So, I mean, I obviously not my area of expertise, but I'm gonna suggest it as a decent idea again. But anyway, I'll let that go for now. But it is for sure for everyone else out there as well. For sure, the more information it has, the more that's out there as well. The more information you can give it, but also the more information it has, the more it will be able to provide. It's not actually going to. Well, it's rarely going to make stuff up. And in fact, that's one of the very early versions 1 year ago. When it came out, when everybody started playing around with this, what it would do was when it couldn't find something in a topic, it would make it up. And that's where it started really going, everybody was like, I couldn't trust it, et cetera, et cetera.
It's not a bad general answer, I would say. For a generalist, it's actually not bad.
Well, I mean, I'm a generalist on this one for sure, but I'll just say, I mean, that also obviously, when we can get better than that, obviously, right? I mean, I bet we can get more specific, but generalist, somewhat generalist question, somewhat generalist answer, not bad. So, but that's great, and I mean, even then, that shows for everybody else a little bit. I mean, just like it's somehow it knows something about just about everything. So anyway, okay, so you can see what I'm doing here in terms of my course development. I'm gonna I'm mindful of time at this point. So I think what I'll say is that I'll just tell you what I started doing. So what I started doing was, in fact, going through, I went class by class and then module by module. And eventually I said, okay, module 1, I want, and well, here, I'll say, for, let's see, where are we for, where are we for this module? This module, can you provide detailed features note? Okay, and so, well, we'll see. I mean, let's see what it does after preparation here. Case study. No, didn't quite get it this time. Okay, but not exactly what I was looking for. But I'll say, like, it will give you, I mean, if you want it, and again, I'm only showing what it can do. Hopefully we all can figure out what, I don't have this presentation scripted. I easily could have asked for a script on it. But you can, you can ask for, detailed scripting on each one. Okay, and then I'm going to show one last thing on this. Let me go to, no, not that one. Well, okay, here. I'll take this. Let's take our lunar one. You know what? I don't think I need. Okay. Here. Can you create PowerPoint slides to display the 5 points you made about landing on the pole? This, I will say, well, hopefully it'll work live. Didn't do it. Okay, hold on. Stop. Please actually create the slides. Okay. So now this is only on the paid version at this point. Okay, but it's actually going to now create the PowerPoint slides for me. Now it's doing it in code in the background. So it's using probably Python, but whatever language it's using, it's actually back propagating these slides, and it's going to give me well, you'll see in a second, it's going to give me a file to download. Stephen?
Yeah, I was just following along with you, Matthew. The free version won't do this. It says
no. That's right. The free version will not do this right now. I think, well, okay, the free version will not do this right now. Copilot is doing it right inside of PowerPoint. So Microsoft now has an AI that will do this right inside PowerPoint. ChatGPT, again, here is now giving me this. So I can now download these slides and open my file up. It's opening on a different screen. They're going to be basic, okay? But there are my slides.
Could I ask how you decide to use like ChatGPT versus like Copilot versus Gemini? Like, which one's your?
Well, so I mean, ChatGPT has been the most advanced one from the beginning, so it's now the one that I'm the most familiar with. They each have their own little tendencies and whatnot, and so I honestly just don't know the other. Yeah, Gemini's super new, so I'm still playing around with it a little bit. It has certain strengths. Gemini is part of the Google world. It's about to, if you get the paid version of Gemini, it now works in Google Docs, Excel, not Excel, Sheets, Gmail, etc. If you get the Microsoft Copilot version, it now works in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook. And ChatGPT is obviously more, holistic. But yeah, I don't have a great reason at this point, except that it's the one that I'm most familiar with. They'll all all three of them are pretty powerful at this point. They'll all do approximately what I'm showing, not to this slide level again. But I'll just also note as I just start through here, let's see. I can now I'm just in PowerPoint options, but there you go. That looks pretty good. Okay, and you know, as I'm going, here you go. And we do this, and we do that, and we do this, and there we go. These are all looking pretty good. Obviously, PowerPoint's using AI, right? And behind the scenes on its designer to figure out what it's going on. But there you go. I mean, my slides are done for class. Right? And not bad, and they look better. They look better than my slides often do. so that's not too bad. So okay, so I'm not going to save that, and we'll continue on. So well, I did see Anna's on that one, and those slides only have very, very bullet point. There's no script on those slides. I mean, those slides are literally just the bullet points that I would put together myself. But it would take me however many, I mean, it would take me a day to put this slide deck together, and I just did it in 10 minutes, right? And so on the one hand, you can lament, as I sell this to everybody again a little bit, on the one hand, you can lament some of the strengths and weaknesses of this, and on the other hand, think of all the other amazing things you could do with your time. Think of all the other ways you could enrich the classroom environment, for instance, with all the extra time you have now that you don't have to spend it putting together point form slide decks, right? And find pictures to make them look pretty, right? So there you go. Okay. So anyway, so you can now see, so this is mostly what I've done for my neuroscience of emotion class. Truthfully, I haven't done all of this. I also run out of time every week and scramble and then end up lecturing to my students half the time and then lament that I didn't actually have the time to come back here and work it out. But sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. And, you know, getting better and better. Yes, Stephen.
I appreciate you for sort of really linking this as a useful tool. One of the things for me, once I create my materials, I'm mostly okay. I just sort of update them. But one of the things I've always sort of struggled with in terms of the core energy is creating, because I work in computer science, is creating the examples. So like, you know, here's a dozen programming challenges, go solve them. And I can just ask ChatGPT to do them and to say, give me the solution. So then, and that to me is one of the biggest areas that it would actually save me time.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in fact, that reminds me, let's see if I have it here. Well, in fact, that reminds me, I will show almost exactly that for my last application. But yeah, for sure, that's like, it's so good at generating things. And that's the thing. It's like half the time you're like, I know I want an example on this. I know exactly what I want to teach, right? And I just need an example of it. What's a good example? Right? And it can take, I mean, that's half the time, half the time in figuring out what to teach in the classroom is just generating a good example. And yeah, and you're like, perfect. That's exactly what I want. And now I know how to teach. So I'll show that in action in a minute. Okay, so I have two more things that I wanted to show. Neither now to do with, this is now moving towards research instead of classroom development. Okay, so that's your, you know, you can hopefully that was helpful in terms of seeing some of the things that it can do. So I'm going to go back now. Okay, so one thing I'm just going to show for research. I started off by talking about working in Google versus working in ChatGPT. And I said, imagine now instead of Google, it's Google Scholar, right? And imagine that you're no longer, right? You don't no longer have to keyword search in Google Scholar, but you can do contextual searches elsewhere. Now, this isn't generative AI per se, but there are, but we'll squeeze it into the curriculum anyway. But there are now a number, and some of you probably know some of these, but there are a number of platforms now that are emerging as Scholar alternatives that are using both we'll call it contextual AI at least, to search based on a contextual understanding of your prompt and of the papers. And I'll show one of them in particular. So the one I'm most familiar with at this point is consensus. I don't know if you know these. These are all paid applications, but most of them have an educator license. They still pay, but it's like $100 a year or something, for, to some of them are $50 a year, something like that, like $5 a month kind of thing, or something along those lines. Now, granted, I mean, this adds up, and of course we can't necessarily have like 40 of them running around, but these are not the most, it's unbelievable how cheap this technology is at this point. So anyway, so consensus, I'll just show. So consensus is, so here, so I can ask now, does, for those of you that, I study neuroscience, but I study it particularly in antisocial populations. And one of my interests is, does antisocial behavior, does antisocial personality disorder relate to substance use? And we can put that in. And I don't have paid versions of this. This is free. Okay, I don't have paid versions. I don't have paid versions of any of these yet, but I'm still sort of like picking. I'm almost certainly going to get one for the lab of one of them. But so what this? So first of all, this will give you. You can see I've only got like a couple of trial credits here. Gives you a couple of trial credits a month, but it will first of all give you a summary of what the overall consensus, that's where the name comes from, of the literature is. I honestly have no idea what this is. It's new, but what this is, you'll note that what it's doing here. So we've got, okay, so we've got the citation for the papers that are coming out. Okay, we've got the titles and the citation of course. It's picking out the sentences from the body of the paper that is relevant, that it thinks is relevant to my question. Okay, and I can go straight to those sentences if I want to, rather than having to go to the paper itself and read the whole thing. I can, and so again, I mean, first here, I mean, that's looks pretty relevant to what my question was that it asked, right? And so I now know in 1998, this one literally said this without having to go to the paper itself. I can cite it, I can share it. Okay, I can also filter, and these aren't really AI things. These are just like, some of this is like, why the hell did Scholar not do this? So I can now say, I only want metas and systematic reviews, okay? Or I only want, experimental research, not observational studies, okay? I can then, so you can say the years, that one's easy enough. But here I'll do metas and systematic reviews. I can then go in here, okay, I only want human work. I can go to journals and I can say I only want it in high Q1 and Q2 journals. And I can go to domains, and that one's probably less relevant because it asked a good question. Apply, and it'll search again with those terms now. And now I've only got meta-analyses and systematic reviews with the sentences that tell me where it's talked about it, okay, et cetera, et cetera. So now on the one, now again, am I suggesting, and certainly am I going to suggest to students that they don't read the paper at all? Of course not. But I'm sure you can all see how, as you're building a paper up and building citations I mean, the time saving on some of this, even just to be able to know where to go in the paper and be like, perfect, that's where okay, and this will link right to, so I can go here to the key takeaways of the paper itself. Okay, again, I can cite it, I can share it, I can go right to the full text, Semantic Scholar, et cetera, et cetera. It's pretty cool. Okay, I'll show, what time is it? Okay, not much time left. So I will just say that there are a variety of them coming out, and they all do something different. Size space is it looks pretty darn good as well. Elicit will give you your results in table format. So it'll give you it'll sort all of the papers by method and study size and conclusions and study type and year and whatever else. It'll just give you the table out of all of that. And then there's one more here, and this one's doing graph analysis. So I now say, I can put in this paper that I'm interested in, and it will tell me all of the other papers, not that cited it, but not just that cited it, but it'll tell me, you can see, I mean, it's giving me a graph analysis of how close all of these are to the papers, and what each of those papers is citing, and how connected it is to this paper, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, and I can go to any of these papers as well now and open it up. Okay, it's again, I'll just say paid service. Okay, I really haven't worked with it very much yet, but there's really cool ways of starting to find research that are way more powerful, I think, than what Scholar's capable of these days. I'll also just say, so I do use the free version of Consensus sometimes, and I'll find I still use Scholar too. I mean, you know, there's strengths and weaknesses. This is still a work in progress, but I find different stuff both ways. And something that was on page 7 of Scholar suddenly came to the top of this one, and vice versa. And so, you know, I'm not totally sold on the whole thing, but just to give you a little bit of a feel for it. Anybody that wants the names of these, I'm happy to send them afterwards. Okay, and so there's that. And then the very last thing, and I have 5 minutes, is I want to show, okay, so whoa, hold on, sorry guys, my screen just went black. Okay, where am I here? Okay, so last thing I want to show is this, and I'll just, okay, so another application that I've built is, I have an error message, but you can ignore that, is I've built a sentiment classifier in this case, okay? And this is all that's necessary for it, okay? You are a classifier system designed to evaluate the emotional sentiment of text provided by the user. Potential emotion categories include happy, sad, scared, angry, neutral, mixed, and other. For those of you in psychology in particular, you will understand the relevance of this. For each text block provided by the user, you will classify each sentence into one of these 7 sentiment categories. For mixed sentiments, include a list of each sentiment that is present. Your output should be in the form of a table with the following columns: associated text, sentiment category, list of mixed sentiments. Okay, so now I have, now I've posted this to Stephen's point. I was like, I don't want to have to come up with examples of all of this. Okay, ChatGPT. Oh, shoot, that one's not working. But there, no, that one's, yeah, here. Please provide a realistic autobiographical description of an event that includes both positive and negative events. The description should be first person, should explain what the person was feeling and experiencing, make sure to make a balance of positive, negative, neutral expressions. Great. The day I graduated from university, it's a whirlwind of emotions, et cetera, et cetera. Perfect. I copy and pasted this into this. Sure, I can help. Here's the, please provide the text. Here it is. I copied and pasted that in, and this is what it's given me out. Based on the analysis, here you go. Okay, every sentence categorized by every emotion that sentence provides, including mixed ones that provide that. Okay, so that's, I mean, we've just saved months of data coding. You know, that's a good question, Hannah. I have no idea. Too early, too early to say. But if it's any, but I will say, I mean, I spot checking, it looks pretty damn good. You know, I mean, for a while, you want to have a human go through and reanalyze the table and make sure that the table makes sense, and et cetera, et cetera. You could do that, for instance. Like there's, you know, I won't say hard sell. I won't say it's perfect yet, but here you go. Okay, months of data coding has just been solved with this. Okay, and very last thing, I have 3 minutes, but I anticipate that some of the psychologists in the room are going to say, yeah, but I can't put my data into ChatGPT. It's public, and I can't get research ethics to, nor do I feel comfortable putting my research data into ChatGPT. And so the last thing I'm going to show, and I'll just do it really, really quickly, is this, okay? Which is, so I'll say the future of these things is that you're going to have offline. Everybody's going to have an offline agent. Microsoft's already doing it. They're already starting to put it together. So you're going to have an offline agent on your computer that you're going to be able to use as a personal repository. At this point, with the exception of this, I'm not aware of any other one that doesn't currently need you to know how to use GitHub repositories and Python and whatnot to be able to do. If you know how to use GitHub repositories and Python, there's an infinite number of private models out there at this point. Anybody who knows Hugging Face will know that you can just go there and just download a model onto your computer as you wish. But LM Studio is the first one that I'm aware of that makes it easy. Download it for Windows or Mac, okay? And I'll just show that, here, I'll just close that, open here, okay? And I've created, and so what you do, it opens up directly to here, okay? And what you need, I can send anybody who's interested, I can send a link to a very easy to understand YouTube video. But you put in the model you want, search for it. It'll give you a model. Okay, I've loaded a model into this already, and you can see I've created the sentiment analyzer here. Okay, this is all offline, local computer. Doing this. I will say you need a decently powerful computer at this point. You're not running this on your everyday laptop, not certainly with large data quantity. Okay, but I'll just note that this, so this is in Markdown format for anybody that's familiar with it. If you just copy paste that into a document, it will create a table, not unlike the table that ChatGPT created for me. Okay, but you'll see, but I've tested it out. It works. I've put this in, and it gave me a sentiment analysis: happy, sad, neutral, right? Wherever the other one is. Okay, so totally offline, really easy to use. The only thing you need is a decently powerful computer at this point to do this with any type of speed. But last I checked, the university had some of those. So. Anyway, so that's I'm 1 minute over. That's not too terrible, but that's mostly what I wanted to get through. So yeah, exactly, Hannah. Exactly. That's that might be harder. Well, yeah, that might be harder. Although, again, doing it page by page, not so terrible. And if you think about how long it would take you to human code that, it still would be an unbelievable time saver. To do it this way on a computer that was capable of doing it. You're still probably talking a couple of days as opposed to not getting it done at all, probably, right? So anyway, and then just note as well, you can actually, like, for those of you, and for those of you that are asking, like Hannah, you asked how good is it, and I said, well, you could get a human to double check the whole thing. You can also at this point, so I'll like, there's just infinite models here. And again, I'm not going to go through them all, and really this is going to be too confusing for, like, there's no need to go into all this right now. But there's infinite models that have been created at this point. There's no reason why you couldn't pick 2 or 3 models and let them cross-check each other. Get the results. Let 3 different models classify the results. And then manage conflicts the same way you would manage conflicts on any other type of meta, any other type of inter-rater reliability that you would do. Have the 3rd model break the tie, whatever else. There's no reason I can see why that wouldn't be perfectly valid. So anyway, those are just ideas. But for anybody who's interested, feel free to let me know. I can send a link to this and a link to a really easy video on how to do this. It's honestly, it's almost as simple as ChatGPT. But even, I know it looks a little more complicated, but it's really not very much more complicated. It's just that since you're doing it on your local system, you need more resources. So you would need the computer to be able to handle it. I see hands going up. That's amazing. I'm happy to stay. Obviously, I'm now 3 minutes over. So for anybody who does have to go, thanks very much. I hope you found it useful and valuable. Happy to take any follow-up questions now, or if you want to email me afterwards, that's obviously great as well. And feel free to let me know if any feedback that suggests whether or not this is like good enough, like if a second, if it's useful to continue thinking about this and having me present like other ideas in the future type of thing, then that's obviously great feedback for me to get as well. So yeah, thank you everyone. Okay, so I'm going to now start to look at questions. Will I see your hands up? Paris has a question in the Q&A, so I'm just going to handle that first. Sorry, I just have a question back with the PowerPoint slides. I missed how you move from the bare bones slide to the images. Oh, yeah, I've closed that, but that's just a free PowerPoint feature at this point. In PowerPoint, once you have created content on your slides, generally it's the title. If you put the title slide into your slide, you can go to their, I think they call it their designer. You can always search for it in the PowerPoint toolbar. But if you just search for design, sometimes it's there, sometimes you need to search for it. But if you look for designer, then yeah, it'll give you the images. It'll give you, it'll let you search for common licensed images and backgrounds as well. And it'll also give you different layouts and all kinds of different things. It's been around a decent amount of time. It's pretty cool. Well.
Yeah, thank you for the session. Like the comments said, like it was very, very insightful and forward thinking as well. Like even Lee Harkin said she never opened ChatGPT, but now she likes it. It works out. I'm here because like my research job, like I do research but then I'll get a question from some policy people and they want like a literature scan. And most of the time it's a literature scan within our own files. The issue that our files are not in the public safety, our files are not super well organized. But also these are very mundane tasks that with short staff, they just kind of like take you out of it and they're a little bit of a waste. They have to be answered, but they're literally like literature scans and then like a paragraph or something like that. Like they don't want a research study. They just want to know, what do we have on this? What can we say to Parliament and so forth? So now that you have kind of contacts with startups and everything, do you have any sense of how complicated or I guess expensive it would be to put in something similar to what you have with Consensus or Copilot? Because now my team has a subscription with Copilot. To have it go into just our files, like integrated into our file storage system, go into there, because we can't really like use the internet-based ones because some of these files would be like classified. Like this would be like our own personal government AI helper. And to go into our files and generate these paragraphs similar to what ChatGPT would do after a literature scan on the internet.
Yep. Yeah, it's very possible. So a couple of answers I'll give is IT has a subscription with Copilot. That's interesting. So one thing I'll say, I mean, so Copilot, the really nice thing, I mean, what Microsoft's trying to sell with Copilot is it's literally now embedded into all Office products. And so you no longer, like ChatGPT is probably, in my opinion, still the best. GPT-4 is probably still the strongest model, but boy, integration into, for instance, Excel. For those of you who came to my webinar like a year ago, I showed how you could use AI in spreadsheets to just like fill out like columns straight down Excel and just have like Excel just fill out, do the same thing for like 1,000 columns and whatnot. Anyway, so that's pretty cool. I'm kind of going back and forth now on whether or not I get a paid subscription, whether I switch over to Copilot or I don't. Anyway, it's very possible. Not that hard, not that technologically savvy. You don't need to be that technologically savvy, and it's not that expensive. It probably depends on how many files you have and how large those files are. It goes beyond what I'm trying to show here, because everything, for those of you that are left here, everything that I'm showing today is based on using the front end of these chat interfaces, which is of course what most everyday people are going to be using them for. But corporations at the institutional level and even at the individual level, but at the at the company-wide level, there is a back end into ChatGPT and all these others as well through APIs. They have their own APIs that you can work through, and that's the way to automate any of these applications that include, for instance, the applications that I've shown. So right now, my sentiment analysis is pretty weak, truthfully, because I have to take every single body of text that I've created and I need to upload it individually into ChatGPT, and that itself requires all sorts of manual effort, right? And so I need to copy paste, wait for it to happen. Each individual table is going to come out by itself. I'm going to get a sentiment analysis, but now I have if I have 100, I now have 100 tables that I have to put together, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's not the efficient way to do this at scale. At scale, you want to use their back end. And their back end is doesn't require, there's no monthly fee. It's usage based. So it's free technically, but it's not free. It's usage based. So it's based on length. And but it's really still surprisingly cheap. Anyway, if you want to talk about it more, I'm happy to. Yeah, it would require a moderate amount of technical understanding.
I might pick your brain a bit more in the future, but thank you very much.
Sure. Anyone else? Let's see, there's still, I don't know, there's still quite a few people here. I don't know if everybody's just lurking or waiting on questions or not even in front of their computers.
Just listening, Matt. It was really very helpful. I really appreciate it, like taking the time to put all of this together.
Yeah, no problem. And no surprise, Shannon. I'm sure you are.
Thanks, Matt.
I'm not sure if I have a question. I'm a bit overwhelmed, and I did miss the first 36 minutes. So I don't want to waste people's time. However, I think I don't know if I'm with other people here, but I would want to know more about this. I'm not sure if I have a question. I think I want to go play first and then sort of come back once I understand the logic of the system, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, so that does make sense for sure. And I'd say if you missed the first 36 minutes, then you missed what was a moderately sloped introduction into the system. I didn't start at like slower, and did provide some basics in terms of like how to use the system and how to think about talking to it and whatever else. So this is recorded. I might suggest you just go back and look at the first 30 minutes, and then happy to talk to you afterwards if you like.
I will say that playing with it is how like I got like really interested in ChatGPT. Like I did when it first came out, I thought it was something similar to like Siri, and I'm relatively unimpressed with Siri. She never hears what I say. Always gives me something else than what I asked for, and won't work in the car. So, but now ChatGPT, I use it a lot for writing. It checks whether my paragraphs have any holes in logic or something like that. Like you can really analyze my own writing to identify gaps and everything. And it does it very nicely. Like people were asking, like, why are we being so nice to it? I'm nice to it because it's very nice to me.
So my experience with this has been, I had a math student. I worked with a math student. He wanted to work with me on a project, and he's an undergraduate. He's already published, but he publishes in this area of ChatGPT. So what he did was something that you did, Matt, which is he wrote an article for a journal, submitted it, then submitted that journal article to ChatGPT, asked it for recommendation to edit like that journal, then asked it for recommendations of what it would suggest given the document. When the article came back, both agreed it was a revise and resubmit. ChatGPT came up with a few more criticisms that he addressed, and then he resubmitted and solved the problems that he could only do. It wasn't a ChatGPT thing, but then he's also writing an article on the process. I mean, he's an undergrad. It's amazing. It's freaking brilliant.
Yeah, that's a great application.
Amazing. So I'm interested in this idea of the editorship potential, like William has noticed. Yeah,
for sure. No, that's I don't know if I haven't used it for a revise and resubmit process at this point, but certainly, I mean, that's a great application of it. And I don't know if you were here for that part or not, Hannah, but I did show something about how to be, play devil's advocate and be a constructive criticist of, in this case, it was course development. But yeah, so it's sort of along the same lines. Yeah, you did. Yeah. 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 I would say I'm not, I haven't actually gotten to giving this formalized presentation to my lab yet, like my graduate students, although I'm probably won't, I mean, I might just have them watch some of this as well. But I am starting to recommend, and I've suggested Will was, as almost isn't my graduate student anymore, but yeah, I mean, I've suggested that they all start to use it, not to write for them, but to help them understand where their strengths and weaknesses lie and how they can improve things and how to work as, as an action editor. And when Will says that it's nice, I'm sure he's, oh yeah, what he really means is it's nicer than me. It's nicer.
No, it's not that.
He gets from me the same writing.
No, what I mean by nice is like I'll make the edits on like I'll send it a paragraph and it'll write back like, there's some holes in here and all that. And I'll make the edits and it'll be like, great job, the sun is yours, or something like that. Like the world is your oyster. Like very, very supportive, which is like the type of thing my parents never gave me. So I mean that's why I go to computers for it.
You're doing this on Copilot, right?
I'm still doing it on ChatGPT, but
okay. I've been finding that Copilot's been getting very sort of positive like that and energetic and whatnot. Again, they all have their own personality. But.
So like my division, like we're becoming increasingly connected to Microsoft and Copilots. My director really wants to automate a lot of stuff, and Copilot's going to be central to that. So I haven't used Copilot yet. The IT department is still like checking all the security things before completely implementing it, but it's coming. But I'm still using the free version of ChatGPT, which it hasn't led me, like, sure, if I ask it to find me articles, no, it doesn't do the best job, it frequently finds me errors, but to look at my writing and to identify holes and help me strengthen and all that, it's great.
Matthew, can you confirm if we will get access to this recording for this session?
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Again, great work. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
And I've got to head to another meeting, but thank you, Matt.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I actually noticed that I'm still recording. I could probably stop that at this point. So.